It's time for that big ET Now exclusive. This is from the largest two-wheeler player in the country in terms of market capitalization. I'm talking about Hero Motocorp. We have the CFO and strategy head Niranjan Gupta in conversation with Nayantara, where he reiterates their margin guidance in a candid chat. They say that they aim to be much more than a two-wheeler player and that a prototype between a two and a three-wheeler is already in the works. Here's a slice of that conversation.
I think as an industry, it's faced a lot of headwinds in the last 5 years. It's important to understand that. Whether it started from the GST or the insurance hike or the BS4, BS6 or the cost inflation that happened. Now with that, with such headwinds, to be at 75, 80% of the pre-COVID levels, and especially when a lot of sale happens at the rural and semi-urban, I think it's a story of resilience. So that's the context that we should look at. The recent festives, we have seen going back to almost 95% of the pre-COVID levels. Also, when we came back from the first wave, there was a lot of pent-up demand that happened and actually really took off. Now, the second wave, of course, impacted the rural income and households a lot. As we see now, you see a lot of factors. What we see is one, the crop is extremely good, as you can see, Rabi crop. We see consumer confidence going up. In fact, the future index is around 113, one of the highest levels. You see, even the current index is sitting at around 85 consumer confidence levels, which was actually 1 year back around 40, 45. Now, this means that if the consumer's propensity to spend will be far more than propensity to save, and therefore that will act. The other thing is, if you look at India's penetration, clearly it's still around 1/3 or 40% of the Southeast Asian levels. So there's a lot of headroom to go for penetration. There's a lot of demand which is lying there. It's just got postponed. We do see with the confidence coming back, with the economy coming back, with all the sectors opening up, hospitality sectors, income levels we talked about, we do see that two-wheelers to bounce back very quickly, very soon.
Okay, so let's see. It's a story of resilience, and let's see if you're able to beat the 2019 levels in 2023. You talked so much about the headwinds and the tailwinds. I'll begin with the headwinds first, just to get that out of the way. Nobody, of course, predicted there would be a war earlier in February that we saw, the Ukrainian war, before the year COVID. The point is that there is inflation, which cannot be doubted.
Yeah.
It has impacted margins. You had earlier guided that we would likely to see what guidance of margins of nearly 16% EBITDA. It's about 11%. The question I want to ask you is, does the earlier guidance hold? Are you expecting the second half to be better than the first half of this fiscal?
So let me, our guidance is not 16%, Nayantara.
14 to 16%.
Yeah?
I took the upper end.
And I've always believed in the tram line because it allows you to navigate through decisions at different points in time. Our long-term guidance still remains 14 to 16%, and I'll tell you why. And at 11%, which is the latest quarter, I think you are picking up. If you really look at the absolute gross profit per vehicle, it is at one of the highest levels in terms of rupees per vehicle. So I think that's another metric that you need to look at, that while percentages would have gone down because of the inflation and price rise, our absolute per vehicle hasn't been impacted that much. As we move forward, there are
So you mean like in telecom, we look at average revenue per user? For you, we should not be looking at margins, but this metric?
It's both. It's like if you're hurting on percentages, are you able to hold at least the absolute per vehicle? Because it's the volumes that sell and you multiply. Now that we've been able to hold, and that's been through a combination of our accelerated savings program, very judicious price increases that we have done in the market, a combination of all that factors. Moving forward, the factors that will help margins, and I'm not talking 1 quarter, 2 quarters, second half, I'm honestly talking more medium term, next couple of years, let's say. We would have the impact of now price increases moving ahead of inflation, because clearly there's been softening of crude, there's been softening of metals where aluminum, steel have come off from their highs. So we have that tailwind. Structurally, we are moving more towards premiumized products and premium. For instance, just to give example, we've launched X-Tech variants in each of the models spaces, Splendor X-Tech, Passion X-Tech, XYZ, Glamour X-Tech. Each of these X-Techs are at 5 to 7% premium compared to the base. And we expected only just 20% of sales to come through those variants. Actually, we are seeing 30, 40, 50% of sale coming through those variants. So even if our overall volumes would have held, through premiumization and through more premium launches we'll be doing in the next 2 years, we do see that our portfolio is structurally moving towards a higher margin platform. So I think a combination of the inflation cooling off and a combination of the portfolio structurally moving towards higher margin platforms, we do see coming back to this range of 14 to 16% in the medium term.
Fair point, Mr. Gupta. And since you brought up premiumization, it was of course going to be one of my questions. As Indian move towards everything more premium and bigger, from real estate to four-wheelers with entry level to SUVs, that's been the trend. Is that what you're seeing in the two-wheeler market? Because let's also not forget, you're talking about pressure on the wallet. You've talked about consumption getting hit as well. At the same time, you talk about premiumization.
I think we need to understand that India has always been a story of many Indias. Yeah, so it's never one, and that applies for two-wheeler category as well. So you see the bottom end of the pyramid.
But your mass market is still rural, right?
We talk about that. So when you talk about, let's take example of entry segment. Let's take example of entry. Even in entry segment, the product that sells the most is the most premium within that segment. So we sell HF
Maybe
Deluxe.
the top variant.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we sell HF Deluxe, which is by far 5 to 7% premium over others. Now we are one with 65% market share. In 100 and 110 cc, our Splendor is probably the highest price in terms of this one. But we say we have 75% market share in that. Not only us, actually you look at premium as well. Everywhere the top end actually sells more. Now what does it tell? It tells about that affordability is not an issue of somebody wanting a cheaper product. In each of the segments, they want the fully loaded product. They prefer fully loaded product much more. And therefore it gives you scope for premiumization. I think the way to solve the affordability issue is more through finance penetration, because that actually reduces your upfront cash down that you have to pay. Otherwise, in each segment, we do see customers wanting to buy a more premium variety. I told you about the X-Tech just now, that how we actually underestimated, because we thought maybe COVID, maybe rural income, maybe urban income also impacted. 20% of the variant can be the premium variant, but it's been 30, 40, 50%. So at each level that you see, the leader actually is one with a higher price.
Mr. Gupta, since you talk about the future is believed to be electric vehicles, and every OEM and every automaker has a different viewpoint on this. I think Hero Motocorp's view is that in a few years from now, EVs will corner nearly 10% of the market, the two-wheeler market. I remember you guys saying that. How are you working towards it? 2022 was, of course, the first time we saw the EV bikes from Hero Motocorp.
So I think again, one is that the structure of the two-wheeler market is that around 35% is scooters. And
because
65
India's move towards EV will be led by two-wheelers. I think that's pretty much
two-wheelers, but within two-wheelers by scooters.
Correct.
So I think that's sometimes not understood fully. And scooters is 35% of the overall two-wheelers. 65% is still motorcycles, by the way. So it will be led by scooters. And I don't think we said 10%, but I think it will be penetration within scooters. Maybe half of the scooters, in the next 5 to 7 years, maybe EV. So that's the kind of estimates that we have. As far as we are concerned, we own 35% of Ather. Way back, we invested, I think in 2016, in the EV play. Now that's a play again to invest for. And we have launched our own brand, which you actually saw recently. So I think this will continue in terms of building our own portfolio on EV. Right now we have launched at the premium end, and soon over the next couple of years we will get down into middle and the bottom segment on that as well.
Including an EV scooter?
It is the EV scooter that we have launched.
Yeah,
so on premium.
No, when
so
you say
it will
when
be
you're going
EV
down,
scooter
going
on
down
the
is
middle
what you're
and
saying.
the bottom end.
That's what you're saying. You'll go down all
Absolutely.
the way.
We'll cover the full spectrum of the EV that we're talking.
And will Ather remain autonomous, or will Hero Motocorp take over Ather?
No comments. All I can say is that we continue to evaluate all our investments from time to time, and we always take strategic calls in terms of either increasing the investment or reducing the investment. So that always is an evaluation process that goes on. As of now, we can only say that
the buzz is, I also cover startup space, that the buzz is that Tarun Mehta, the founder of Ather, has promised that there will be an IPO. Now, if there's no IPO, then what happens? Because, we've seen what's also happening in the stock market. They started to do well, but it's just that the new age companies still have to do better on the Lal Street.
I think it's more about for the Ather board to decide in terms of the IPO and listing, so I won't be able to comment on that. As far as we are concerned, I stick to that We own 100% of Vida, which is a brand, and we own 35% of Ather, which is again a fantastic brand to be in the space.
If we've started to see the four-wheelers at least start to phase out entry-level cars or reduce production of that, do you see that happening soon for two-wheelers? Because you've talked about premiumization. You're talking yourself about how consumers are preferring bigger two-wheelers, stronger ones, bigger engines.
No, next 10 years, no. Because there's huge masses at the bottom end. I mean, India, if you really look at, must be almost around 250 million people who do not own a motorcycle. Now, that's the size of probably Indonesia as a population. And I just explained why people need, why households need that. So we don't see that happening in the next 7 to 10 years. It's a story of many Indias. You will have the urban, semi-urban on premium, you will have super premium, you will have entry. There is scope for every segment to grow. It's just that in every segment, each of the segment, people want that plus factor, that wow factor. That goes without saying.
Hero Motocorp has also always said that it has the potential to grow a lot in the export markets. I think your target is to have 1 million units in a couple of years that you're going to be exporting. One, how far are you from that milestone of 1 million? And does it still hold given the larger story that's playing out globally, the slowdown, the recession, whether soft landing, hard landing?
I think we've got to look at, again, more from a medium-term perspective, that what are the growth drivers for Hero Motocorp? Now, one is on the entry and deluxe segment, we have a market share which is 70%, 70% plus. So there, our role is about expanding the category. That's where the growth is going to come from on the entry side. On the premium, we did not have the portfolio, which is where I talked about that we have seen few launches. The next 2 years, you will see lots of launches in the premium segment. In premium, we have around 5% market share. So again, that's a huge growth opportunity for us, led by portfolio that we are going to fill up, which we have talked about. The third is the global business. Industry has 25% of the portfolio coming from global business. We only have 5%. We have seeded into 40 plus markets. So now it's the time to scale up. So again, it's not going to be one quarter, next quarter. Yes, currently there are headwinds. But those headwinds in global markets are not going to last long. So therefore, on a medium term, if you see again that mix changing from 5% of the portfolio to maybe 10%, maybe 15% of the portfolio, that allows us another growth driver. And of course, finally, the EV scooter. Because on the scooters, we have around 10% market share. So for us, any electrification into the scooter category, the more it is a gain for us because we just got 10% market share.
So you just say it's a low base, so you can
absolutely.
It.
So that's a gainer. So these are the four
by
growth drivers.
You're sticking to the guidance of 1 million units in a few years. By when do you expect to hit that milestone?
So I wouldn't talk about 1 million units. I would simply say that over the medium term, we need to increase our share of global business in our portfolio from currently 5% to 10% and then to 15%. So that's the kind of thing that we want to do.
Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla gave a sensational headline earlier this year when he said that this is the year of the Mahakumbh of Capex, right? He had said that. What are Hero Motocorp's plans when it comes to Capex?
So before I come to Hero Motocorp's plans for Capex, and I agree with that statement, by the way. If you see the government Capex spending as well,
yes,
I think they had a budget of 7.5 lakh crores this year. First half has been 40% up year on year. There's been more and more focus on that. Private Capex is also coming back. The balance sheets are cleaner now, allowing to spend. New energy is being spent. In fact, India has always been or been probably focused on being office to the world. I think it's time now India becoming a factory to the world as well. So I think that's the change that we will see from Indian perspective. From our own perspective, we've been doing capital allocation in a way which is required based on the demand and based on our future plans, and we'll continue to do so. Of course, EV will require Capex. We continue to spend, we continue to have the guidance of around 1,000 to 1,500 crores a year. We've said that over the next 5 to 7 years, probably 10,000 crores overall, which is what we'll be spending on. But remember, in our auto industry, it's not just what we spend. A large part of Capex, you have to take the ecosystem.
Ancillary.
Because the vendors, the moment we decide to spend X, Y, Z, if we decide to spend, let's say, 2, the whole ecosystem will probably be 10,
Correct.
5 times. So that's the way that you have to see. Whether it's dealers, vendors, mechanics, the entire ecosystem, the Capex spend actually goes up.
You have also recently taken over the reins as becoming the Chief Strategy Officer. What are the new strategies that we're going to see? You're already the world's largest two-wheeler company, motorcycle company.
There are, first of all, I'm glad to have taken the responsibility. The other thing I want to say is that as a CFO, currently all CFOs, I think, anyway have more strategic role to play than, let's say, decades back when it used to be operational and transactional role. So I don't think it's far away from what CFOs are anyway supposed to play. But yeah, as a corporate strategy, yes, we are the largest, but that doesn't mean that we have no room to move forward. I just talked about we need to move forward in premium. Yeah, so if you segment it, we need to move forward in global business. We need to move forward in EV, and maybe we need to even look at some of the adjacencies, maybe beyond two-wheelers. So I think the scope is immense.
One second.
And
beyond two-wheelers means what? Talk more. What
could be anything, multiple revenue streams maybe. So as an option, because currently most of our revenues come from two-wheeler first of all, and within two-wheeler comes from the product. The parts, accessories, merchandise are close to around, if I remember, 12-13% of the revenue. So I think there is a scope first of all into getting a non-product revenue streams. And of course, as a business,
you talk about merchandising, servicing,
accessories, merchandise, service, all
after
that sort
sales.
of stuff.
Okay.
And even on a product part of it, and we have talked about this before, that we continue to evaluate that are there anything beyond two-wheelers, yeah, that we
So
should
if
be
Ola
looking
can
at.
dream of having an electric four-wheeler, why can't Hero?
No, between two-wheeler and four-wheeler is another wheel, so therefore you
Three-wheel, are you
cannot
going to do that?
So,
Are you going to?
so
are you
no
looking at
comments
that?
on that, but we continue to evaluate. So I'm just responding to that as strategy. We need to continue to evaluate the core as well as adjacencies.
Is there anything firm for going beyond two-wheeler?
We continue to evaluate. Right now, there's nothing.
Hero Motocorp is also.
We did, of course, unveil, I think in Hero World, we unveiled an innovative product, which was a two-wheeler and three-wheeler combined. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
When
that's
will
something
that
that we are
go?
working
Is that
on.
still like
It's in the works as an innovation.
yeah.
Yeah.
What are in 2023? Talk to our viewers, maybe your future buyers. What can we expect as far as launches go?
So while I won't be able to specify any
Will there be a
particular
three-wheeler or
particular
between a
launch,
two-wheeler and a four-wheeler?
But all I can say is you will see a lot of exciting launches. You will see launches in the premium segment for sure. Yeah, on that. You will see refreshes in the other segments. So it's going to be a year where you will see a lot from Hero Motocorp from a launch side.